remain muted throughout the presentations until the breakout sessions, and any questions you may have you can direct to the chat room and they will be responded to accordingly. The teams coordinating today's session are those from the Pacific Island Farmers Organization Network, PIFON, as well as the Asian Farmers Association, AFA, an invaluable support for us here in the Pacific from the Philippines. Given the busy schedule tonight, we shall start with the official program, day one of the dialogue series on sustainable food systems, and focuses primarily on climate change adaptation. To open today's session, we are grateful to have Mr. Tawfiq El-Zabri, the International Fund for Agricultural Development's Country Director for the Pacific Islands, who joins us from Rome. His acceptance to open today's first dialogue launches the week-long series of events focused on sustainable food systems in the Asia-Pacific region. Tawfiq has 25 years experience in rural development and poverty reduction across Asia, the Near East, Eastern Europe, and the Horn of Africa. Prior to joining IFAD, Tawfiq worked with the World Bank Group, the International Monetary Fund, and the International Food Policy Research Institute. Very warm welcome to Tawfiq.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Angela. Thank you. Good morning. I don't know if I should say good afternoon or good evening. For some of you, good evening, and for some in the Pacific, a very early morning. It's really a privilege for me and an honor to be invited to provide a welcome and some opening remarks to this important event. I think it's really important. This is really an important contribution to the food systems dialogues across the world, because if we want to fix food systems, we need to listen to the people who work in them. And that's the farmer organizations and their membership is of course critical. It's a bit of a challenge to have this kind of dialogue only virtually, not only because of the IT hiccups, but also because we miss out on the important side interactions between the contributors and interlocutors. But so COVID-19 has forced us to find new solutions. And in spite of the pandemic's terrible toll, it's been a game changer in some ways. The crisis, the pandemic, has made us look for new options and possibilities, new solutions to be more efficient. It's enabled us to come together in different ways, and here we are meeting and conversing from our homes or offices across the globe, which I think is really exciting and very, very important. But for food systems, even before COVID-19, they have been facing enormous challenges. Food systems that the farmer organizations and their membership are taking care of ensuring that we have nutritious food, that our natural resources are used well, and that there are livelihoods for many, many people. And in fact, there have been challenges in this area globally. While the world is able to grow more food than we need to feed the world's 8 billion people, we still have high levels of hunger even before COVID-19. It's been rising, reaching 690 million people in 2019. It's been rising for several years. And healthy diets are unaffordable for at least 3 billion people. Also, even where there is more food, we have the problem of non-communicable diseases because of lack of access to nutritious foods. And that is another huge challenge for food systems. So food systems aren't yet adequately reducing hunger and malnutrition. They need to be improved. Also, on the economic side, small-scale farmers and other rural people who provide about a third of the world's food and most of the food in developing countries are facing inequalities and seem to be disproportionately represented among the numbers of hungry and poor. 3/4 of the world's poorest and hungry people live in the rural areas of developing countries. 63% of the world's poorest people work in agriculture, mostly on small farms. So food systems still are not yet eliminating poverty and inequities. Agriculture, also in terms of climate and biodiversity, agriculture is adversely affecting biodiversity, particularly the more industrial and intensive agriculture systems. It's contributing to pollution and to greenhouse gas emissions. About 30% of total greenhouse gas emissions are coming from agriculture. But agriculture is also a victim of climate change. Projections suggest that significant decline in crop yields in most of the world, including in breadbasket areas, failures in breadbasket areas, and there are crops at risk of decline in nutritional quality, in their zinc, their iron, their protein content, crops like maize, rice, wheat, and soybeans. Different crops, of course, have different contributions to environmental stresses, but overall, the pace of change in environmental earth system processes are moving at an unprecedented rate, all deteriorating. And in the Pacific in particular, since this is being hosted by the Pacific, I should add that agriculture is vulnerable to sea level rise, as well as increased intensity and frequency of extreme climate events. So the food, and I should add that although agriculture is playing such an important role, it's only receiving 1.7% of climate finance flows, in spite of its important roles in all these areas. The Food System Summit reflects a recognition that food systems need to be transformed and that we need concerted collective actions across the board to leverage the benefits that we can gain. Ensuring nutritious food is available for everyone, securing just and equitable livelihoods for all, and sustaining and indeed regenerating the environment. The transformation also requires additional resources. As I mentioned, only 1.7% of climate finance is going to agriculture. And so we need a transformation in food systems. This is a watershed moment, I would say, because we can, change is happening very, very fast. We're at a moment after which things may not be the same. And we have the opportunity to change directions or improve the work. So, but for food systems to be sustainable environmentally, economically, and socially, they need to be built on a bedrock of prosperous and productive small-scale farms. They need to contribute to resilient and inclusive rural communities. And for this to happen, food systems need to support small-scale producers and the women and men and youth who harvest, process, store, and market our food. In other words, food systems need to work for the people whose labor they rely upon. This can only happen by consulting with farmers and taking on board the unique perspectives of different groups, including indigenous people, women, youth, and others, individually and through their organizations. I'd just like to finalize by saying that IFAD has been working for many years in recognizing farmer organizations and family farmers, not only in Asia and the Pacific, but also in other regions, including through support to regional and global farmer forums such as this. And IFAD is funding farmer organization-led independent dialogues across the world. So these sessions will bring together the voices of farmers by their farmer organizations to be able to speak to the action tracks that countries are getting involved in for the UN food system in New York in September, and preceded by a pre-summit in Rome, where we're looking forward to hear your voices and the results of these sessions. And I'd just like to thank AFA and PFON for organizing this very important event to ensure we hear from farmer organizations representing the people who are most dedicated and committed to food systems to help steer the transformations in the right direction. In the Pacific where I work, I know PFON has been very active in national level dialogues led by governments and ministries of agriculture. And at the Pacific Islands level also, they have been quite active with the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat. And now at the regional Asia Pacific level, they're also helping. So I'd like to thank very much AFA and PFON for creating the space for interaction and exchange. And many thanks to all the participants for your engagement. I wish you fruitful conversation. And I'd just like to add that resilient food systems start with empowered rural people. And again, if we want to fix food systems, we need to listen to people who work in them. And so we're very happy to be here and looking forward to the results of this interaction. Thank you and wish you successful proceedings.
Thank you very much, Tawfiq, for those opening remarks and the data you've shared to launch the series for the week ahead. We're grateful for you joining us from Rome. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Ma Estrella Penunia, who is Secretary General for the Asian Farmers Association, or AFA, a regional alliance of 22 national farmer organizations that span 16 countries in Asia. They are composed of small-scale women and men, female farmers engaged in crops, livestock, fisheries, forestry, herding, and pastoralism. AFA promotes the effective implementation of the UN Decade of Family Farming at national and regional levels to harness the potentials of family farmers to contribute to the work of ending poverty and hunger. Welcome, Esther. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, for that kind introduction, and good afternoon to most of the friends, participants who are based in Asia, and good morning to friends who are based in Europe right now and who are joining us from Europe right now. So I'm making a long presentation, like 20 minutes, and this is to orient us on the Food Systems Summit and the food systems in general, so that we level up on our understanding of this key process and key concept. So I would just like to share my screen. I think I am unable to share the screen. Okay, yes. So I'm just wondering if the hosts were able to do an online poll.
Yes, Miss Esther.
Yes. So I would like to ask Irish D to make the online poll. So this is just what we want to know. Have you heard about the Food System Summit? And from whom, if you have heard of it, from whom or from where have you learned about the Food System Summit? Can you respond briefly to this poll? First question, have you heard about the Food System Summit? And second, if you heard, from where or from whom have you learned about the Food System Summit? Okay, thank you. That gives us a sense of our familiarity, with the Food System Summit, with 29 people saying yes and 5% saying no, and mostly for those who answered yes, many have learned it from their NGOs and from their organizations. That's interesting. That's interesting. Irish, I think you have another question, maybe just to see the demographics of this session right now. You can flash it. So can we just ask you to also respond to these poll questions about your age and your sex assigned at birth, as well as the sector you are involved with, and from where you are joining from. We'll give some time for at least 50% of the participants to respond to this. If ideally we can get 100% of the participants to respond to this question. Okay, from 56 of the first, okay, more. Okay, so we have, most of us are in the 31 to 50 age bracket with a good number of 19 to 30 years old. So we have young people here, that's good. And then almost equal, female and male, that's good. Various a slight difference. And of course, most of us are in agriculture and crops, although we have some on fish and aquaculture, livestock, food industry, and education and academe and development partners. Thank you, our development partners, for attending here. Oh, and we have many from Southeast Asia, 40%, South Asia, East Asia, and of course Central Asia. It's good that we have participants coming from all these breakout groupings. For the next 5 days, our breakout groups will be according to this sub-regional grouping, so you will get to interact more with people from your sub-region. Okay, so thank you very much. So I would go back to my presentation. Okay, so maybe I should show my slide so it's easier for you to see. Okay, but how can I close the poll? Okay. Okay. So maybe why are we here today? So why are we here today? Because at the United Nations level in 2018 to 2019, you know, our governments always have a meeting at the UN headquarters in New York, and they review the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So in 2019, they reflected and they came to the realization that at the rate of the implementation of the SDGs, it won't probably be achieved by 2030 because we are lagging behind in the implementation of SDG, especially SDG 2, which is ending hunger. So what can be a rallying cry or maybe an entry point for countries to accelerate the work to achieve the SDGs? The UN Secretary General called for the Food Systems Summit as a recognition that if everyone works for the transformation of the food system, then the work to achieve the SDGs will be accelerated. The centrality of humans' need for food has again been demonstrated during the COVID-19 pandemic. When governments announced lockdowns, the first thing that people, especially those who have money, was go to the market to buy their stock of food. In 2019, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced that he will convene as part of the Decade of Action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030, a Food Systems Summit, which will launch bold new actions to deliver progress on all 17 SDGs, which relies to some degree on healthier, more sustainable, and equitable systems. The objectives are the objectives of the summit are first is to generate significant action and measurable progress towards the SDG. Second is to raise awareness and elevate public discussion about how reforming our food systems can achieve the SDGs. Third, develop principles to guide governments and other stakeholders to leverage systems to support the SDGs. And fourth is to create a system of follow-up and review. This is the area of work to deliver the Food Systems Summit. So there is an advisory committee and a special envoy was designated. That's Dr. Agnes Kalibata from Rwanda, who used to be Minister of Agriculture. There's a range of staff complement for the FSS processes. As there's a scientific group which provides the evidence needed to say that this solution is something that is replicable and that will transform and make food systems sustainable. Then there are action tracks that people, individuals, and organizations who think thoroughly of the game-changing solutions or the strategies or actions that can transform food systems. There's a champions network that promote the food systems. And then there are food systems dialogue, member state dialogues conducted by the government, global dialogues conducted by the FSS Secretariat, and independent dialogues like the ones that we are conducting right now, being organized by individuals and organizations who are not necessarily part of this process inside. And then the UN task force. At the advisory committee, there are 18 members and there are 18 members from different organizations and about 10 members from member states. And you could see here that there are three farmers organizations who are members. One is Elizabeth Nasimadala from the Pan-Africa Farmers Organization, myself from AFA, and then Myrna Cunningham Cain, who is from the UN, from the Indigenous Peoples of Latin America. So with regards to member state dialogues, as of May 14, 201 member state dialogues were registered and 148 conducted, and 35 feedback forms received. That means 35 countries have already provided online the results of their dialogue. And then there are global dialogues. Upcoming will be on environment today, not today. There have been global dialogues on young people also. And then there are regional dialogues. In Asia, we will have an regional dialogue organized by UNESCO on June 10. And then for South Asia on August, that will be organized by the SAARC Agriculture Center. And then we have independent dialogues. As of May 14, 400 have registered in the independent dialogue. Okay, so can we show the video in this link, Irish? Can we show the video just to start off our discussion on the food system to highlight.
Food is more than just what we eat.
Sorry, just a few seconds.
Food is more than just what we eat. The ways in which we produce, process, and consume food touches every aspect of life on this planet. It is the foundation of our cultures, our economies, and our relationship with the natural world, and has the power to bring us together as families, communities, and nations.
Families and children are on the brink of famine.
But today's food systems are fragile and unequal. When they fail, there are ripple effects around the world, and the pandemic has impacted the most vulnerable among us. But we know what we need to do to get back on track. We have an opportunity to build back stronger than ever. Transforming our food systems is possible and necessary, and we can set a course to make real change for the benefit of all people. By bringing together key players from around the world and giving voice to citizens in every country. Because a strong food system means
no matter your race, no matter your class, no matter where you live,
women and men have equal opportunities to produce and access nutritious food,
which promotes human health at every step
without degrading land and water resources.
Significa una agricultura familiar.
Provide us, the community, with stability.
All year round, every month, every day of the week.
Even during a pandemic.
we are all connected, and we all have a responsibility to act. We must be bold. We must think and act differently. Transforming our food systems is the most powerful action we can take to solve our biggest problems. Because together,
we can build a just and resilient world.
A just and resilient world
where no one is left behind.
Where no one is left behind.
Where no one is left behind.
Where no one is left behind. Join us today.
Thank you for that, Irish. And now I can share my screen again. So in that video, it asks us to really get our act together and discuss, and then find solutions and act on the solutions that will transform food systems. In the food systems summit process, there are 5 action tracks. No? And these action tracks is underway, has been working since November. So the first action track is on ensure, a moment, I should have to play it. Yeah. To ensure safe and nutritious food for all. The second is shift to sustainable consumption patterns. The third is to boost nature positive production. The fourth is advance equitable livelihoods. And the fifth is on building resilience to vulnerabilities and shock. AFA is currently working with Action Track 3 and Action Track 1 and would like to go into Action Track 4 as well. So since from November to February, the action tracks have collected ideas on the kind of solutions that will go towards the directions that is specified in the action tracks. So they have identified like outcomes for the food systems, and then enablers on the food system. This is heavy text. I just want to flash to you the kind of thinking processes that has been going on within the action tracks. So since March, the action tracks have further zeroed down to identifying action areas and solution clusters. So for example, in action track 1, on access to safe and nutritious food for all, they have identified 3 action areas, and each action area, they have provided solution clusters. So in these solution clusters, the organizations and individuals here are talking on what are the solutions, the concrete actions that can be done at the national, regional, and global levels to promote this. So I will pass it. So at action track 2 is like this, action track 3, action track 4, and action track 5. So you will have a copy of the presentation so you could take a look at these action tracks and the solution clusters. And if you would like to be part of the solution cluster in really going to the discussions, the deeper discussions on how to realize these solutions, then please tell us, and we could link you to the leaders of these solution clusters. But let us look into how CSOs are involved, because in many of these in many of the people in the action tracks, there are really very few local, national CSOs. Mostly there are international CSOs. So we can say there are 2 processes. One is outside the process, especially those who are part of the civil society movement and the indigenous peoples for CFS. They have big critique on the food system process, like the dominance and control of big agribusiness. It's not anchored on the right to food and not based on human rights and not clear on who decides. But there are also farmers organizations who are inside the process, and CSOs like APA, PAFO, and ROPA, and SACA with INOFO and WFO and PIFON. No? Because we say that you're talking about food systems and food system concerns farmers, so nothing about us without us. We have to be there at the table in the discussions. And we see the food system process as a political space and an opportunity to share our perspective and showcase our solutions and advocate for our priority policies. But those outside and those inside, they can complement each other and they can build on and synergize their efforts for advocacy so that the food systems, the results of the food systems will be one that we would endorse, no? Because we think that these people who are outside and people who are inside, we have the same goals and ambitions. So, however, those who are inside the Food System Summit, we also have our own issues like the language issue, that because everything is in English, the time zone issue, it's always, the meetings are done always at midnight Asia time. There are short time given to read and react. There's 2 inputs, There is seeming preoccupation and importance given to scientific write-ups, and NGOs and FOs do not always do good documentation work, and lack of clarity in how the different game-changing solutions are done. And then PO's voices are not significantly heard and amplified. So that is why AFA, PIFON, INOFO, and WFO agreed to hold independent dialogues to amplify, to drumbeat, to highlight the voices of farmers in the Food System Summit. Why? Because when we look at the elements of the food system, farmers are always there. We are in food production. The farmers and especially cooperatives can distribute and aggregate. We are also into processing. We are also into marketing. We also are consumers. We buy food, we eat and prepare food. And in our work in farming, we also generate and can recover wastage. So in all these food system elements, farmers are there. We have a role to play. That is why we say farmers are at the heart and at the center of food systems. And if we want food systems to be sustainable, farmers have to be a key actor, have to have a key role in the transformation and in the change to sustainable food systems. Okay? So now I just want to invite you to write in the chat box, what do you think and feel is the biggest problem that farmers face as a key actor in food systems? Maybe top of your mind, can you just write in the chat box, what is it that you think is and feel is the biggest problem that farmers face as a key actor in the food systems? Okay. Okay, while you are doing that, let me say that in various consultations among farmers organizations, we see that we have many problems as producers. Lack of rights to natural resources, lack of access and control over technologies, finance, information, market resources, weak market power, and insignificant involvement in decision-making processes. That is why we need to transform into sustainable food systems that are productive and prosperous, equitable and just, empowering and resilient, regenerative, healthy, and nutritious. So what are our game-changing solutions? The Food System Summit is a solution summit, so we are really asked and encouraged to present and to showcase our game-changing solutions. And for AFA, our game-changing solutions can be categorized into three: our initiatives on resilient, just, and healthy food systems, our involvement with the United Nations Decade on Family Farming with family farmers in key roles, and our advocacy for an adequate, longer-term direct financing to national, regional, and global farmers organizations. And this is my last slide. So how do we campaign in this FSS? So we have national independent dialogues. Our groups have conducted 11 national independent dialogues, 11 countries. We hopefully the results of the national independent dialogues will be fed into the member state dialogues, as well as to what we are doing right now, the FO regional dialogue. And then the results of our regional, the national independent dialogue can also feed in the regional dialogues. Like for Asia, it will happen on June 10 with UNESCO organizing. But our results, the results of our meeting this week can feed into the regional dialogues, as well as the global FO independent dialogue that will happen also this June. And the global FO independent dialogue results will feed into the FSS producer global dialogue that will happen in July as a run-up to the pre-summit. There's a pre-summit that will happen in July. This will be attended by member states with academe, with all the people, with the research institutions who are involved in the food systems. And the pre-summit in July, the results of the pre-summit in July will be fed in the summit processes, which will be done in September in New York. So all of this, including the member state dialogue, the regional state dialogue, and the pre-summit dialogue, will feed into the summit processes. And we hope through our independent dialogues, we are able to influence the pre-summit and the summit. But also we will do campaign advocacy through social media to really mobilize our farmer constituency and to highlight their voice in the Food System Summit. So hopefully we could be together in our common advocacy for a sustainable, just, and resilient and empowering food systems in Asia and in the world. So thank you for your attention. Sorry I took up some of the time. Back to you, Angela.
Thank you very much, Esther. We certainly appreciated all the time that you spent on that. It provided a very in-depth overview of the Food Systems Summit. And as you said, farmers are at the heart of food systems. Our next speaker will be sharing on farmer organizations and how they play a critical role in climate change adaptation. Here to share with us on this important topic is Lavanya Kumaitoya, PIFON's manager. Her vast experience in leadership roles before becoming a farmer herself have held her in good stead in providing the necessary support to PIFON's 23 farmer organization members. Welcome, Lavanya.
Hi, sound. Maybe try to remove your headset or headphones and then try again from your laptop. No, we cannot hear anything. Try to unplug your headphone from your laptop and then try to. No, sorry, we cannot hear anything from your end. Sorry, Lavinia, we still cannot hear anything.
Ah, right. Testing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Bula, everybody. Sorry about that. We just had to enter in our way. Okay, let me share. And I need to share screen. How do I do this? Irish D, help.
Yes. Just your screen on your Zoom screen. You will be able to do it since you are co-host.
Ah, okay. All right. So can I share? Can you see my screen now?
Not yet, Lavinia.
Button here. Yes. Open up.
Yeah. Oh no, she hasn't been given share screen. More?
Yeah.
Share screen.
All right.
Yes, we can see it now.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So in Fiji, it's evening here, but I know in Asia and in Rome, good morning to AFAD. if you're joining us from Rome. So mine is on the role of farmer organizations in climate change adaptation. Right. Let's go. What's happening? Maybe Irish. Yes. Can you try that, Lo, please? Thank you. Sorry, everyone. We're just having a little techno here. Stop share. Right. Stop share. Yes, carry on. Is that apologies, people. This is us signing in from the Pacific. And,
I can share the screen from my end.
Okay, thank you. So next, role of farmer organizations in climate change adaptation. Oh, it's just coming on in the other way, yeah. So the
Which slide? Sorry. So this is the first.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'll just take the small one. That's okay. That's fine. Yeah. So really, what do we know about the impacts of climate change in the Pacific? Next slide. In the Pacific. Next slide, Arish. Yeah, so in the Pacific, we had SPC in 2015 organize and publish a publication on vulnerability of farmer organizations. I really can't see what, that's better. Hold on, let me see that. There's nothing moving on my side.
Lavinia, I think Irish is flashing the screen, so you just tell her if she needs to go to the next slide.
Yes, my issue is I can't see. I can't see anything from my side, so.
From your screen, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to look for the Zoom, for your Zoom account.
No, we can't share my screen. Can't share my screen. Sorry, people. I'll just see what I can work from here. Irish, we're on conclusions for farmer organizations. Yeah. So really, what we arrived at is that by enabling, so climate change will likely impact agriculture by amplifying existing threats, particularly climate extremes. And the current approaches that we are having, they tend to ignore the threats and the focus. So we need to really change. The next one, conclusions. Next slide. So really, we need to enable farmers to adapt to climate extremes in the short and medium term, and for us to be better placed to adapt to climate change. So how do we do this? Really is we need to work on our capacity building for our people, and we need to start from the grassroots. So what is the comparative advantage of farmer organizations in doing this work? In 2015, PIFON worked with SPC on a PAP project, and we developed a policy brief both for agricultural research and also for extension. And farmers organization, what we arrived at, next slide, is related to agricultural research, is that a partnership, and this is, I think this is where I'd like to really stress, a partnership between agriculture ministries, relevant public sector organizations, and farmer organizations will increase the depth and quality of agricultural research, as well as see more comprehensive and widespread adaptations of the results. Likewise, we arrived at the agricultural extension policy brief, and we, for the next one, next slide, it says farmer organizations can effectively and efficiently complement. We are here to work with government and with aid agencies by extending the outreach of support to farmers. Next, please. So if you look at this diagram, really in the traditional agricultural extension model, you have the government and aid agencies working directly with farmers. In the emerging agricultural extension model today, you have government and aid agencies working through us, the farmer organizations, and the farmer organizations then working down to the farmers. We see this working very well with us here in PFON and across our 9 countries that we currently have members. And so for us next, so for us in PFON, climate change is really one of the adaptation strategies that we promote to our members. And how do we do this? Next, we actually have a program that, and it's called the Pacific Breadfruit and Seed Program. This particular program we work in is really the Pacific farmers responding to climate change and food security. So what does this program mean for us? We identified that we need to enhance domestic food production, utilizing farmer organizations as the key policy response to address the dual challenges of climate change and food security. This program is also a farmer-led initiative to operationalize this policy response. Next, under the present FO for ACP project, which we are currently doing now, working in, we have rolled out this project in 9 Pacific countries and partnering with 18 of our farmer organization members. Some of the work that we're doing, next, improving access to seed for Pacific Island farmers. There was a regional scoping study and a design on utilizing farmer organizations to improve access to high quality seed for Pacific Island farmers. Next, under this program as well, we've conducted farmer exchanges specifically to Taiwan with our farmer organizations, with NGOs, universities, and the commercial seed producers on open pollinated seed, but likewise also hybrid seed production as well. Next, one of the things that we are also doing is we provided technical assistance in upgrading seed production, processing, and storage with our members. Next, we also, along this similar project as well, provided new seed packaging sourced from China for our members here in the Pacific. For PFON, we're also heavily involved in hosting regional events. But again, this is all prior to COVID. Being able to get like-minded people, and this happened in Solomon Islands with Custom Garden, who are the experts in seeds in the Pacific. We also sent a group of our members to Australia, learning exchange on open pollinated seed production as well. And under this project as well, the development of breadfruit next as an orchard crop for processing and fresh exports. Next. Arish, next. Yes, thank you. And then and multi-cropping. Next slide. So when we are working in the breadfruit, under our breadfruit project, the development of breadfruit as an orchard crop for processing, but also for fresh export as well. Next, and also for, as you can see here, learning exchanges of our members between intercountries, Tonga to Fiji, Fiji to Samoa, Samoa to Tonga. We also hosted, again, regionally, a Pacific Breadfruit Roundtable. Next. Next, right. And then carry on to the next slide. And also working with our members to also host a regional Pacific Soil Learning Exchange as well. And also supporting off-season vegetable production as well. In PFON, we are next. We are known for our farmer-to-farmer technical exchanges. And more recently, next, under the current project that we're working on with all of our members that you can see here on the screen, really focusing on capacity building for our farmer organization members to predominantly work in these presented areas that I have just presented. And then taking this work and because of COVID, and taking this work and working virtually with our recently launched Breadfruit People. Next. Under the Breadfruit People, we have hosted several webinars that encourages climate change adoption activities. That includes agroforestry systems, soil health, food security, and under these webinars as well. And not forgetting one of the new areas that we are now working in together with our partners, AFA, is Forgotten Foods, working in with traditional varieties of cultivars and planting material that is indigenous and specific to us here in the Pacific. And also looking at our cropping systems, our traditional cropping systems, its resilience, but weaving it into today's sciences that we have. So really in conclusion, what I'd like to conclude is that farmer organizations play a critical role and are critical partners to help extend the reach of government and aid agencies to support not only the Pacific, but also in Asia as well. And many of you who are signed in tonight, our Asian farmer organization members, to adopt to climate change. And because we are doing this, we are close to the action on the ground, and we're able to take the work from our government and from our aid agencies and our partners right through us down to our farmers on the ground, our family farmers, smallholders who are working around the Asia Pacific area. And thank you. Thank you. That's my, for us from PFON, really as farmer organizations, what we can do collectively to work to help with this climate change adaptation. And I know that later after me, we'll see some more of our work through videos and through presentations as well. Thank you, Angela. Over to you.
Thank you so much for amplifying the importance of farmer organizations in adapting to climate change. We have a video to share. If I can enlist Irish, please. Although it pertains to the Pacific, it applies to other parts of the Asia Pacific, the greater Asia Pacific region as well. Thank you.
Ask any farmer in the Pacific about their biggest challenge, and they will say weather. Climate extremes and climate change are a reality. The Pacific region is made up of some of the most environmentally vulnerable nations in the world. The severity of these extreme weather events and natural disasters are expected to continuously increase. This will have ongoing implications on food sources. Farming is deep-rooted in the Pacific, from subsistence farming as families, villages and communities to what are now very lucrative commercial agricultural industries. Agriculture is a significant component of exports for most countries and employs the greatest percentage of the labor force in the region. According to the 2017 Pacific Community publication, Vulnerability of Pacific Island Agriculture and Forestry to Climate Change, Pacific Island traditional crops are in general more resilient to variations of climatic conditions. However, many traditional farming practices have declined in recent decades, often in response to commercial production needs. Our traditional crops are resilient, but our farmers are slowly forgetting how to farm them. As a result, it is likely that the vulnerability of Pacific Island food and commodity production systems to climate variability has increased, which may threaten food security. The impact of climate change is expected to be far greater on global grain crops such as rice and wheat than it is on certain Pacific Island root crops like some varieties of taro. As a result, the price of imported grain is expected to increase. This has serious food security implications, but may provide market substitution opportunities for traditional crops such as taro, cassava and breadfruit. Climate change will likely impact agriculture by amplifying the pressure of existing threats. So how can farmer organizations assist? The logical approach is to improve our capacity to address existing threats while continuing to address knowledge gaps and identify future threats. Farmer organizations are critically placed to help extend the reach of government and aid agencies to support Pacific Island farmers to adapt to climate change. Farmer organizations are in the best position to identify which communities, farmers and farms are in need of assistance. They are also in the best position to communicate to government and aid agencies the type of assistance needed. Farmer organizations in the region already have some initiatives in place to help farmers, like agro-processing with solar power in Papua New Guinea, the Papaya Disaster Mitigation and Variety Selection Program in Fiji, cottage industry breadfruit processing, alley cropping and vetiver grass to strengthen farming. Other strategies being implemented by farmer organizations to assist farmers in the industry include the promotion of agroforestry for climate change adaptation, the promotion of traditional crops and biodiversity, improving capacities of farmers to manage pests and diseases, encouraging cover crops and soil management, and the promotion of open pollinated vegetable crops and farmer selection programs. On the 11th of October 2017, over 50 farmer leaders, partners and stakeholders from 10 Pacific Island countries gathered in Port Vila, Vanuatu. They discussed the likely impact of climate change on Pacific Island farmers and identified possible effective responses from governments, development partners and farmer organizations. They urged Pacific governments and development partners to acknowledge the research in the Pacific Community publication Vulnerability of Pacific Island Agriculture and Forestry to Climate Change. Develop appropriate policies and programs that respond to the latest research in this publication. Support and invest in new approaches to agricultural research and extension, such as the decentralized model and partnerships with farmer organizations and the private sector. Support and invest in traditional crops and production systems, which are in general relatively resilient to variations in climatic conditions, including root crops, breadfruit, and selected timber species. Participants also committed their respective organizations at country, sub-regional and regional levels to create awareness amongst members and partners on the vulnerability of Pacific Island Agriculture and Forestry to Climate Change publication. Develop and implement programs that respond to the latest research in this publication in the areas of soil improvement, diversified cropping systems incorporating more traditional crops and tree species, sustainable agricultural practices such as reduced chemical uses, integrated pest management and pest and disease clinics and applications, developing open pollination seed banks with support from farmers, development of support for new, environmentally sustainable technologies. Climate change is here, and the effects on Pacific agriculture cannot be ignored. While we continue to research and forecast what this means for the future of our industry, we must immediately respond to the current needs of our farmers. By enabling farmers to adapt to weather threats and climate extremes in the short and medium term, future generations of farmers will be better placed to adapt to climate change.
Thank you, Irish, for sharing that video. Our next session of the program focuses on strategies to help farmers adapt to climate change. And joining us today is the Chief Executive Officer of the Fiji Crop and Livestock Council, Chu Ndaunivalu. The FCLC is the largest farmer organization in Fiji, and Chu will be covering improving the capacities of farmer organizations to manage pests and diseases. Her experience in working with government as a senior economist, the private entities she's also worked with, and the UN before joining FCLC bodes well for the entities with whom she works. Welcome, Chu. Sorry, Chu, you need to unmute.
Thanks, Angela and Bula, everyone. Angela, can you share the slides?
Sure.
Thank you. I will talk on this question that was given to us by before. How FCLC as a farm organization in Fiji has worked on improving its farm organization capacity to manage pests and diseases. My presentation is to do more on the governance aspect on how we address this issue. Let's look at the Fiji Crop and Livestock Council for those of you who don't even know what Fiji Crop Livestock Council is. I'll approach this question from the three pillars that governs our services on how we identify the problems, the mitigation, and the need for collaboration and integration with farm organization and members. A Fiji Crop and Livestock Council is a cabinet mandate. You can hear me? Yeah. FCLC was formed in 2013, a cabinet mandated body. The three pillars of services of FCLC is there, strength and formation of farm organization and registration of members, provide agricultural advisory support services. We are not extension service provider, but we complement the work of the Ministry of Agriculture, Extension and Research. And the third one is to advocate and network with government and agriculture stakeholders representing the interests of our farm organization and members. That is the farm organization that we have registered under Pillar 1 to strengthen formation of farm organization and to register the members. So far, up to end of May 2021, we have registered 16 farmer organization bodies. Angela, go to another slide, to the next slide. And total farmers or member that we have registered or we have profiled and updated in our database is about 2,000 members, and total farmers that were registered in 2013 to 2016, which we yet to update, is about 27,000. And under Pillar 2, we provide agricultural advisory support services. Have highlighted that we are not extension service provider, But we have farmers who can share lessons learned or success lessons that can be replicated by other farmers in the same area. What we have found is that in providing agricultural advisory support services, we FCLC, we are the facilitator. So we work closely with our enablers, namely the Ministry of Agriculture, the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji, the Ministry of Health, and PFON, and other agriculture stakeholders, specifically to raise awareness and improve knowledge, understanding of impact of climate change, pest and disease, and how to mitigate in this aspect. And the problem that we have highlighted is that climate change is a major contributor to the increased rates of transboundary plant and animal pests, disease and invasive species, and overall negative impacts on social and economic development. We all know that farmers rely on harmful pesticides. Can you go back, Angela? Okay, I'd like to highlight that these farmers, normally they use pesticide and chemicals to control pests and disease without realizing the harmful impact on their soil, the environmental and health risks. And farmers have limited access to information and financial resources with heavy reliance on locally natural resources for their livelihood, especially the most vulnerable, these are the women and youths. Yes, Angela. And how farm organization through Fiji Crop and these 16 farm organization bodies mitigate climate change impact in terms of pest and disease control. A farmer organization approach to mitigate problems and risks. We highly recommend this integrated approach. And normally we do close consultations with key government agency, agriculture stakeholders for awareness of the climate change impact on pests and disease and consequent effects on farming, food and nutrition security and livelihood of farming families. Trainings regularly conducted by FCLC in coordination with the Ministry of Agriculture and Biosecurity to improve knowledge of farmers and understanding the full range of safe adaptation and mitigation tools. Thirdly, engage successful farmers who share lessons learned, I've mentioned that, on best farming husbandry practice, pest and disease control, and engage in capitalization of experience that benefit other farmers in Fiji. The fourth one is the digitalization of information. Farm organization conducts survey through Farmers app, that is the one that we are currently doing with PFON and Traceable Solution, where we can profile farmers and assess the impact of COVID-19 on their farm, their livelihood, the health, and nutrition and food security. App provides opportunity to capture real-time information, where we can send out messages, information on timely basis, and preparation of bankable proposal for farmers to access finance. And the fifth one is to enhance biosecurity rules and regulations to control pest and disease. Angela, the next slide. Under Pillar 3, we advocate and network with our stakeholders. It is very important that we become member or we contribute in various committees or working groups for review and amendment of laws. As I mentioned, that it is important to ensure that we have proper governance in place. So we work closely with BEF and Ministry of Agriculture in relation to plant and animal disease control in the drafting of an animal health bill that comprises those four: animal disease control, animal health, animal production, and veterinary law. Next slide. Under Pillar 3, I've mentioned that consultation with the farm organization on development of emergency response plan. These are some of the AR plans that are in place, which biosecurity, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, they consult the farmer organization, not only FCLC, but respective farmer organization like the Fiji Beekeeper Farmers Association, the Fiji Pig Farmers Association. So I've highlighted some in terms of the African swine fever, the Animal Biosecurity Emergency Response Plan to address the possible exotic incursions such as African swine fever, awareness and emergency preparedness. So our farm organization reps have attended training held in collaboration with the Pacific Community, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Farmer Plus program. 300 officers of BAF and Ministry of Agriculture were trained, and we were invited to be part of that. Farm organization and farmers training were also organized by BAF, supposed to be held last month, but now on hold due to COVID-19 lockdown. And it is important that for our farm organizations and members, they have to be aware and vigilant of the African swine fever and associated risks to safeguard the industry and Fiji from the disease. And farm organization to raise awareness of the African swine fever emergency response plan that provides guidance focused on containment, management, eradication, and regulation in collaboration with biosecurity, Ministry of Agriculture, and the public at large. BAF has finalized that plan, and they have presented to the board to seek cabinet approval, hopefully by June or July this year. In enhancing the biosecurity rules and regulations, the Fiji Crop Livestock Council supports the enhancing of the biosecurity rules and regulations and ensure proper consultations with relevant farmer organization and members, contributing to the review of rules and regulations by BAF, coordinated by BAF in the preparation of a planned industry emergency response plan that was successfully coordinated in November 2019, preparation of animal biosecurity emergency response plan in December 2020, and FCLC is a member of the working group comprising key stakeholders in the review of the BAF Act 2008, which is currently underway. Fourth, the emergency declaration on bovine tuberculosis and bovine brucellosis by Biosecurity Authority of Fiji to control movement of cattle and control spread of disease. So they have rules and procedures to be strictly followed by our farmers, and it is the role of farm organization, FCLC, and the 16 farm organizations to raise awareness with our members on these rules and procedures. BAF has to issue certificate once test results are obtained from the Ministry of Agriculture. And the fifth one is on renewal of emergency declaration in order to control and contain the bee disease, that is American foul brood and varroa mites. And farmer organizations organize trainings to raise awareness. That is the Fiji Beekeepers Association and Fiji Queen Bee and Honey Producers. So their members, they know the rules and procedures of movement of beehives, nucleus colony, the queen bees, or use agricultural equipment within Fiji, which is strictly prohibited unless biosecurity provides prior authorization for movement. And they review this every 6 months, joint guideline in place for long-term management of these two diseases in close consultation with the farmer organizations, FCLC, and the Fiji Beekeeper Farmers Association. The third one is that they extend the declaration of the biosecurity emergency through legal notice, and the one on the American foul brood and the one on varroa mite. This is being reviewed by BAF every 6 months. I've highlighted the importance of raising awareness with our farmer organization and members, the farmers. They have to understand the rules and procedures of biosecurity, and we show them this zone mapping that is provided to us by Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. That is on African American full-brood, and this map is on the Varroa mindset. Next one, Angela. Just to conclude, I've mentioned the importance of governance and also the importance of close collaboration, as we know in this food system elements, that we need to empower farm organization and farmers. As you know, the farmers are the main actors or right in the center or heart for transformation of these food system elements that we have heard in the previous presentation. Just to conclude, farm organizations ensure that farmers and members are provided with this. One is the right information to improve their knowledge of rules and regulations applicable to all aspects of farming, include testing
có cái dịch bệnh hại những cái vận động về gọi là thông minh.
Dan penyakit dan juga praktek-praktek pertanian yang cerdas dan sumber dan juga dukungan yang dibutuhkan untuk
is to ensure close collaboration with government agencies, ministries, agriculture stakeholders, the value chain integration of actors, the enablers, and supporters and donors and implementing agencies. Thank you, Angela, and thank you for everyone for listening, for your attention.
Thank you very much for the insights shared. We now travel to Sri Lanka, where we invite Dr. Anil Senyanyake, who represents the International Network of Organic Farmers Association, or INOFOR. He has been a consultant for UNEP, UNDP, and the World Bank on matters of biodiversity and forest rehabilitation. And with his long history of active environmental conservation work, his pioneering work on species habitats, and his extensive knowledge of the marketing of organic products, Dr. Senyanyake will present on cover crops and soil management. Welcome, Dr. Senyanyake. So are you able to unmute, please?
Doctor, please unmute your mic. Please unmute your mic, Doctor.
Yeah, Angela, I've got a slide presentation. How do I do this? Screen share and carry on or what?
Yes, you can.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I can go screen share? Okay.
Yes, you may. They've enabled it. The hosts have enabled it.
Okay, fine. Okay, let me do this. Here we go. Okay. Are we okay here? Do you see my screen?
Not yet, sir. Not yet, sir.
You don't see
At the bottom of your screen, you've got screen share? No, we don't.
Yes, I did that. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Let me, oh dear. It's truth. Okay, one more time. I'll go to screen share. Slides as virtual background, portion of screen, video. What do I do? Slides.
Sorry, sir. At the bottom of your screen, in the center, there's a share screen with a green tab.
Yes.
Yes, if you press that, press the share screen, the green tab.
It gives me, yeah, I did that. I did that. And it tells me, what do I want? Slides as virtual portion of screen. Let me try that.
There you go. There you go, sir. There you go.
Help. Brilliant. All right, fine. Let me do this then. Okay. What I want to do with you today is one thing I noticed in all our work that we do, there's one thing that we have sort of ignored, or we really should look at harder, and that's the soil, and also the relation of soil to climate change. So I'd quickly like to take you through that. Soil itself, as we know, is comprised of the four components, but organic matter basically is the whole driver. And as farmers, as agriculturists, this is what all of us should be really focusing on. Why? Because when we look at, soil organic matter, it's just about the over the A horizon, normally 0, 1 to about 10% in proportion. Why it is important is this, because 1 gram of soil, right, though we think it's good for farming, why? Because 1 gram may contain 1 to 2 billion individual bacterial cells. The same gram has 100 to 200 million individual actinomycetes. The same gram, sharing those two, has at least a kilometer of length of fungal hyphae. There are algal cells, nematodes, collembols, on and on. Right, so the mass of bacteria alone, Allison points out, is about 5,000 to 1,100 kilograms per hectare in the upper 15 centimeters. Now, if you look at the rest of it, you're looking and look at the soil itself, right, we're looking at something like 7,000 to about 14,000 kilograms of living organisms per hectare on a good living soil. Now, what happens here is that the combined mass of this is equal to about 20 horses. We're looking at about 20 horsepower of energy used day and night in a living soil doing chemical transformations which go to give us productivity in terms of agriculture. Now, it's not only the biomass, it's also the biodiversity. So we got to ensure that there's a B2B ratio. But what happens is that when we start, when we start putting on artificial fertilizers and chemicals, that represents external energy coming from outside of our soil ecosystem. External energy through any ecosystem tends to organize and simplify that ecosystem. This is an ecological axiom. And what happens then is that both the biomass and the biodiversity component is reduced. And as it gets reduced, the tonnage of living organisms gets reduced. And the biological energy to sustain any productivity from the soil is reduced, and the soil is then becomes totally dependent on external energy. Now, this unfortunately has been the process in terms of the formal high energy agricultural system. Now, here we go. Now, this, and what happens is when the topsoil is gone, well, you're down to the B horizon, and as we have in Sri Lanka, the erosion is horrendous. Now, we can change it through good soil management that we do to build up the soil, to a point where it can return. And we've been doing this, but what we must remember is time, because soil organic matter has to decant. And to decant, the soil ecosystem has to change from a bacterially dominated ecosystem to a fungally dominated ecosystem. And then what happens is it starts moving towards the soil organic matter, starts decanting into humus, into humic acids and humin, and then onto fulvic acids and humic acids. And these chemical compounds have been measured in good soils that haven't been disturbed to have lifetimes of up to 15,000 years. Now here we are, if you're thinking about holding carbon in the soil, 15,000 years. All right, now, excuse me, here we go. And now, a soil evolves over time, and that's what we can do as farmers. And what farmers can do is this natural process that you see, right, where there is a sea horizon, slowly builds up with plants. They start putting organic matter into the soil, a horizon starts building up, and we go forwards. Or we could do the other way, and that I've seen so where all of you, There is forest, this is Amazonas. Behind you, they want to do development, so they take some of the trees out and sell it for timber.
Recording in progress.
All right, fine. The
Recording stopped.
The forest, the timber has. Ouch! What do we do? I'll just carry on. I carry on, I guess. Okay. Here's the forest, and the biomass is reduced as it goes to the market. It gets smaller plants into that, coffee mostly as a crop. If that doesn't work, they want a quicker crop. They open the soil, they plant rice or a grain in the soil, and then it's down to the bones. That's what's happening around the world, and good farmers need to understand the soil in order to change this process. Now, when the topsoil goes, of course, desertification begins. And this is what all of us have to think about avoiding into the future. And one thing that happens that we all don't recognize is that it's not only desertification and soil loss. For soil loss, the other major element of soil loss is urbanization. And as we move from the woods to meadows to crops, to intensive crops, to residential areas, to the urban area, we start putting impervious surfaces on the soil. And impervious surfaces seal the soil forever. So there's no more living soil, and the area of living soil on this planet also is shrinking as a consequence. When we have to think of soil management, we also have to think of this seriously. Now we have, as a consequence of all this activity and development, right? Oh, we can build up soil
Recording in progress.
Right. We can build the soil organic matter, and that's something we have to be thinking about. Mostly because tree roots provide all the material for soil to come up. And the effectiveness of tree roots feeding the soil and active soil coming up is a symbiotic system. And we, in management, can help move that forward. But what is important now is that not only the soil itself, trees also help to cool the ambient environment, a critical area that I'd like to share with all of you as farmers, because due to climate change, this is going to happen. Due to climate change in many nations, we are going to have days over 37 degrees. And when that happens, photosynthesis begins to slow down because chlorophyll gets denatured after 37 to 38 degrees. And the whole world, our agricultural fields are now steadily moving towards an area where productivity will stop or cease. What do? We have to now respond with future agricultural design. And some of the functions that I showed you earlier are things that we should be thinking about, because we can get some cooling factors into it. And as you can see, as the warming begins, even the earthworms, even the soil begins dying out. Now, soil begins dying out. So what we have to do is think about agricultural areas which are producing but have trees around. We have to have forest garden or treed agricultural areas. The future, on my left is an organic farm, but it's just monoculture. And if there's a heat wave, all of it goes. On the right, we have a more diverse ecosystem complex with trees which give cooling that will help the farmers live another day or have a little more crop in this future coming. So for adaptation to climate change, these are the thoughts we should be thinking about. Finally, I'd like to quickly share another feature with you, since all of you are interested in rural areas and forestry and restoration. People are now finding out that trees can actually communicate with each other through fungal networks. And fungal networks can happen only as long as your soil is alive. Young soils are bacterial, mature soils are fungal. So in terms of agriculture and farming, we have to learn first to farm that mortar that is most important for our sustainability, the soil, and how we can use it and help it respond to the coming changes with climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Senyake, on what you've imparted to us this evening. Invaluable information. Thank you. We do have a video. I'm going to ask Irish to play a video, please. Although it was prepared in Fiji, the two presenters are respected pioneers within agriculture in the Pacific, and what they share is pronounced throughout the region. Dr. McGregor is the joint author of the book Vulnerability of Pacific Agriculture and Forestry to Climate Change. He is an economist specializing in Pacific Islands agriculture and natural resources, and his experience also encompasses work from the Eastern Caribbean and Hawaii. He is joined on the video by Sant Kumar, whose entire career has been in agriculture and spans a total of 6 decades, even more if you consider that he was raised in a family of farmers. Concepts he has shared over the years have been adopted throughout the Pacific, and he shares some of these on the video. Thank you.
So climate change, well, we're looking specifically at the impacts on agriculture, and agriculture particularly in Fiji. So there are a number of things that we can say, and increasing average temperatures is the underlying thing, and particularly for agriculture, it's minimum nighttime temperatures is where the big impact has. One thing that is quite clear is the increase in the extreme events, be they droughts or floods or cyclones, and we've certainly experienced some of that recently. Some of the models say that the cyclones may actually become less, but they're going to become more intense, and it's the intensity that has the big impact. Increasing wind speed doesn't increase in impact in a straight line, it's an exponential line, so we already have experienced that with Winston.
I was listening to the radio news, and the weatherman said there is a cyclone coming in northwest of Nandi, 200 miles away. All my nursery is built disaster mitigation, and if there is a cyclone coming in, how can you save your nursery and how can you save your seedling? So if you don't have a building, usually at the cyclone time the building is full with people, and schools are full with evacuation centers, and even church is full. So what Sant has done, Bula Agro, has designed a 20-foot container into a storage. So once you have taken your nursery up, then you take the seedling. So this is the seedling. It's ready for transplanting, but the cyclone is coming. If we leave it out there, it's going to damage it. So what we do is take it to a... So this is just an ordinary 20-foot container. On the side we are putting angle line, and these are my seedling production tables. So it design and fits into a container. So once you get your seedlings out and want to store, you just bring it down and load it here. So you can have a big or small plant, anything. So you start loading from that end and you come out. See, natural disasters come, they destroy everything. Yeah. And when you start, it's going to take 3-4 months to come back to this stage. So this is the way you save that 3-4 months lapse period. If the weather is good, soon after a cyclone, you can start transplanting. Yeah. And if you are a smart farmer, you do this with your vegetables, you might be ahead of the other farmers who are doing the normal way, and that's where you make the money. Now we have loaded this, and the plants are living things. Yeah. So they'll be creating a lot of heat. So usually the cyclones are fast moving, they don't stay too long. And this is why I haven't provided any ventilation or any lighting. But should the cyclone start, it's a slow moving, decide to stay longer, then we can modify it, put ventilation in, so take the hot air, and we can even put the light on. Yeah. The power goes off and the solar lights put it on. We've tested in one of the cyclone. Cyclone came in, we did this. Next morning we cleared it, third day we were back into business. I think the system is very simple and it's working. It's sustainable, and I think we can build it anyway. Yeah. So that's tomatoes, this is bongo chili, this is red fire chili, this is Pritham eggplant, that's kaffir lime, and that's kumquat, grafted seed. See, grafted citrus and mangoes and all that usually take 2 years to get them ready. Now if it is destroyed, and it will take another 2 years, so you lost 4 years.
Time, yeah.
I think this model, a lot of people within Fiji and other Pacific region have seen, and even internationally, Caribbean and other places where they're getting cyclones, and they have taken the idea, and I think they are developing their own.
To have a similar effect.
If they don't have 20-foot container, then what they can do is look for something which is similar. One thing comes to my mind is the reefer trucks, refrigerated trucks. Same thing, and when they become obsolete and they're lying in somewhere, you can take them. So instead of welding a rod there, you can put 2x2 timber, nut and bolt.
One thing we ought to look at in terms of climate change projections, everyone talks about extreme events being climate change. Well, they're not necessarily so. We've had the El Ninos, the Enzo cycles for centuries, where we go through the cycle of very dry periods where there's a higher probability of an extreme cyclone for centuries. But what's happening now is that's being superimposed on this general increase in temperatures and the general impacts resulting from climate change. And that interaction is where we are not sure, but we can certainly say that it is likely to be extremely adverse.
According to the weather scientists, they are predicting that there will be a lot more stronger cyclones coming in, there will be a lot of flooding. Climate change has been happening, it's happening now, it's going to happen. To do anything in the long term. But I think what is needed now, change of our mindset, to be able to produce or develop production system whereby we can put the food on the table, if not 3 meals, at least 2 meals a day, and avoid people going to sleep without food. So I think if we come together, we can develop a lot more things like this to go with the climate change, which will be sustainable.
Food security, often people think of food security being the ability to grow your own food. But we've got to remember that Fiji is now essentially an urban, peri-urban country, higher percentage.
Thank you very much. Some valuable insights shared there by the pioneers of agriculture in Fiji. There are so many initiatives that have been undertaken by farmer organizations to help farmers adapt to climate change. And here to share with us on rainfall insurance is Dakshaban Patel. Dakshaban is the coordinator of Self-Employed Women's Association, or SIWA, in India. And she has been working with SIWA for the last 21 years and had joined as an organizer, having organized women members in Ahmedabad district, and she currently coordinates SIWA's multiple livelihood activities in an integrated manner in Ahmedabad. Welcome, Dakshaban. Thank you. Sorry, Dakshaban, is Dakshaban able to come on? While we're waiting for Dakshaban, Irish, could we play the second video, please, on crop disaster management and the variety selection programs?
Mulabinaka Greetings from the Pacific. I'm here with Kaitu Eresito. My name is Levi Torra. We are farmers based in the Sambeto Valley. And this morning we want to share with everybody out there some of the lessons learned during our trials in regards to papaya and breadfruit. We were both collaborating farmers and researchers for the Pacific Breadfruit Project, as well as the Fiji Papaya Project that was funded by ACR, AusAid, and he's going to be explaining some of the issues we crossed during those trials and in regards to climate change mitigation, and also not forgetting the food security issues we'll be facing. So without further ado, so what kind of crops do you grow in your farm?
Mainly is cassava. Apart from that, we have short-term crops, eggplant, chilies, sweet corn,
I see you have some livestock too there.
Some of the livestock just to get everything going on.
You had conducted some trials in regards to cyclone mitigation. Can you tell us some of the results that came out of those trials?
For papaya, we have 3 strategies, mitigation practices. The first one is mainly the trimming of the leaves of the papaya. So we have papaya and the leaves, we just simply prune all the leaves.
100%.
100%. When the cyclone comes, one thing that will happen, most of the fruit, if the tree has already bear fruit, it will be exposed to sunlight. For that, you have to cover it with a piece of cloth.
To protect it from sunburn.
Sunburn. That's one of the biggest problem after the cyclone.
So what's another strategy you can use?
Another strategies that we implemented simply 1 feet or 2 feet above the ground. You just remove the whole tree, wait for the cyclone to come, to pass, and then you wait. You will see that the tree will produce side shoot, 2, 3, or even 4 side shoot that will come out from there. And then from that side shoot, 4 side shoot, you choose only one healthy side shoot and remove the rest of it, so that all the nutrients, all the water and everything goes to that one ratoon. The fruiting may delayed for 1 or 2 months, but after that the flower starts to come and then fruit starts to follow, and then you start again from there.
Back to production.
And the third one, always want to stress the farmers is the importance of drainage. Because the papaya, they don't like water. After heavy rainfall or a cyclone, you will see some waterlogged area. So for a farmer, if he doesn't have a tractor, has to go with a spade and make a drain out of that, just to remove all those excess water. Because what normally happens, the rooting system starts to get rot, phytophthora, affects the whole tree. Not only one tree. That disease or the rot can pass to the rest of the trees, and then your whole block will be affected from phytophthora or root rot.
So Kaitu, you were also involved with the Pacific Breadfruit Project. What do you think the farmers in Fiji can relate to when it comes to a cyclone or a natural disaster?
One of the lessons learned that we normally stress to the farmers is the importance of pruning. Most of the farmers, they don't want their trees to be pruned. The trees, they tend to grow taller and taller every year, but most of the farmers, they don't want to prune the trees because there will be a delay in their fruit. But pruning is also very important. It plays a major role in both keeping the trees at a safe, to be safe from cyclone and hurricane, and also more production. And pruning too, you don't have to prune the whole branch. It is simply pruning the main terminal growth of each selected branch. You will see every branch of a tree, there's a main terminal inside there. So that's the branches that you normally select and remove. And yes, you still have those old branches that will bear fruit for you during pruning season. After pruning, the tree recovers 9 months until it bears fruit again. We all know once the cyclone comes, most of the trees damaged. Why? Because of no pruning. And the third thing for the importance of pruning is you are keeping the trees at a reasonable height during harvesting. And this less post-harvest damage. We have wild harvest trees. The farmers, they climb the trees, they harvest, and they throw down the fruit. Family members catch it using a tarpaulin. There's a lot of injuries, bruises, and most of the fruit get rejected when they're taken for export. So to minimize that, you need to prune your trees so that you harvest your fruit slowly and put it in the crate without damage.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about intercropping you did with the breadfruits? That's one interesting trial that you conducted, eh?
For breadfruit, we always stress the importance of intercropping. So we have some of our farmers that we develop the commercial orchards, and inside, so we are using 9 meter by 9 meter spacing. So inside that space, you can use that for planting short-term crop. We have pineapple, cassava, eggplant. All those can be grown inside there while you wait for your breadfruit to come into production 2 to 3 years time. You are harvesting from these short, medium-term crops.
What about the use of drop structures and vetiver grass?
That is also one of the important strategy that we learned. We saw that the heavy rainfall and most of the breadfruit orchard that we had, we planted in the slope on the hill. We saw that when there's a heavy rainfall, there's a lot of leaching, there's a lot of water runoff and soil erosion, and the land is damaged, and so as the tree. The use of A-frame is simply you use it to mark. If you are planting on the slope, you use that A-frame to mark the contour lines. You get a tractor to mark all the contour lines leading into the drop structures. When the rain comes, the rain simply goes and follow the contour lines and into these drop structures. Your land is being protected from this heavy erosion and water runoff.
Can you talk to us about how important it is to conserve our traditional cultures?
I think it's very important. We have Kumala, Hundi, Wubi. All these were being planted by our forefathers. Why? The main reason why is because they are resistant to this climatic condition. Flooding, heavy rainfall, pests and diseases. It's very important. It's time for all the farmers to move out and source all these traditional cultivars and plant them in their farm, mainly for food security in the future.
Good luck, everybody. We've just wrapped up now. Thank you, Kaitu, for your time. We hope you've learned a lot of.
Thank you so much, Irish. Because of the time difference, we had to ask these two farmers to produce the video because they weren't able to come in. We do have a curfew here in Fiji, and the internet reception where they are is not the best. So we now welcome Dakshaban. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours. Thank you so much.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम दक्षा पटेल है और मैं सेवा में पिछले 21 सालों से काम कर रही हूँ। जो सेवा संगठन है वो गरीब और श्रमजीवी
The Seva Sangathan is for the poor women, and most of the members are from the Mankeru and they're from the livestock. And we can see that for many years this climate change is happening. Because of that, the border areas and the farmers in the border areas are getting a lot of loss. And now we can see that the rain occurs at a heavy frequency and the crop of the farmers gets damaged. So we can see that this loss is occurring. Because of that, the farmers take the loan and they have to pay a lot of interest and they get into a lot of debt. So we have seen that there are some schemes, but the Seva is giving the facility.
So everyone, please use the English translation. If you are not able to follow, just click on the interpretation. It's a globe at the bottom, and then click on English. Thank you, Dr. Ben.
तो सेवा ने एक ऐसा बीमा
So Seva has started this insurance, which is weather insurance. So because of the heavy rains, they can get themselves insured, and the farmers of this area can get the insurance as per the unit, and the land which is there with the farmers, as per that unit, they can get the insurance. And the unit taken by that farmer, according to that, only the insurance is being given to the farmers. Sometimes because of heavy rains or maybe because of lack of rains, the weather or this rain differences can give the profit or loss to the farmers, and this insurance starts in the month of June when the first rain occurs. It starts at that time, and in October when the monsoon gets over. Till that time, this insurance is covered to them. Because of that, many farmers have got benefited, and at times the premium of insurance has benefited them, and the loss has been recovered or compensated because of that. And the loss which occurs to the farm in the farm, so the food security is also under the threat because of lack of production. So the farmer is not getting any benefit. So this insurance scheme which has been launched by us is definitely benefiting the farmers.
ये जो हमने इंश्योरेंस बनाया है सेवा में वो
And this insurance by Seva is altogether different. And for small farmers, we have initiated this. There is no need of documentation, and the uninsurance or other insurance, they have to give the documents, and only the big farmers get benefited. But the insurance provided by us in Seva, there is no document required from the farmer side, and micro premium is also there for farmers. As per just 100 rupees per unit, they can purchase the insurance, and very small farmers can purchase this insurance, can avail this facility, and the small farmers are the ones who are getting the benefit. And whatever damage occurs to the laborers, they also don't get work because of this problem. So definitely the laborers also get benefited by this heavy rains. In 2006, we started this insurance. At that time, 1,000 farmers joined this insurance policy. 1,000 farmers registered themselves in this scheme. After that, more than 5,000 farmers joined this policy, and they got benefited. In 2 through 4 years, wherever this heavy rain occurred, they got benefited. So the insurance is definitely doing wonders to the Seva members, and they have got this insurance. We have reserved this policy only for the Seva members, and at other places we have not given this insurance. If somebody wants to ask any question, please raise your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ban Boddanbat. We thank you for your time this evening. We will now move to our breakout room so that if anyone wishes to add to
Mọi người
what
nghe
has
được không
been
nhỉ? Anh Kiên cũng vào đấy lại là tối.
Sorry.
Mọi người có cần dịch
Thank
không?
you. So we will now move to the breakout rooms. You've all been assigned to different breakout rooms which are being divided geographically. So we have Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. So you have been assigned to breakout rooms. You'll be in the breakout rooms for approximately 30 minutes, and then you'll be brought back to the main meeting room, and reports will be delivered from each of the 4 groups. So You will now enter your respective breakout rooms. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So before we start, Irish, this is the Southeast Asia group, Irish Dominado. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Irish D, I think I'm supposed to be in the East and Central Asia group.
Mọi người có cần dịch không nhỉ? Những người còn lại đấy cần dịch không nhỉ? Mọi người nghe không?
Hello?
Có, em cứ dịch đi em ơi.
Dạ, ok chị. Chị nhưng mà còn cơ bản những người kia mà không thấy ai lên tiếng gì nhỉ? Không, mình nhắm lên đây này.
Chen, this is Rowena. Can you please mute
one. Sorry.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry because I'm interpreting.
Yes.
How can I turn off to you?
You just click the mute button you see on the left side corner of your Zoom.
I click
the
mute. But
yes.
my colleagues still hear me.
So you're interpreting for them.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, wait, I'll just.
I and Chien are stuck outside. You cannot get in the room for a long time.
Okay. So I'm also looking for Maya. Maya, are you here, Maya?
Are you referring to me?
So you're also Maya.
No, I'm Mylene of AFA.
Hello, Mylene.
Hello. So, sorry, there was just initial confusion because I was supposed to moderate the East and Central Asia group, but as it turned out, there won't be an East and Central Asia group, so I'm just confirming whether I am moderating this session.
It's okay. Yes, you could. And I will be your note taker.
Okay. So maybe we should start?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just open my video for a bit. So good evening, everyone from Manila, Philippines. I am Mylene Makabuhay from the Asian Farmers Association for Sustainable Rural Development. And I will be moderating the session, the breakout group for the Southeast Asia group. For this afternoon. I think we only have 30 minutes to answer 3 questions that I will share. Oh no, host disabled attendee screen sharing. Can someone allow me to share my screen from the hosts or co-hosts?
Mylene, it says here that the multiple sharing is enabled.
It's enabled po, so hindi
yes.
pwede.
No, I mean pwede siya kasi enabled naman.
Enabled, okay, but it says, it seems like it's not working po on my end because host disabled attendee screen sharing. It's okay, so we can just proceed. So my question though, I think there are some participants here who would require interpretation, but it doesn't seem like we have interpretation channels in the breakout group. So maybe I'll just give time for everyone to translate the question. So for this breakout session, we have 3 questions that we need to tackle. So in order for us to have a productive discussion, we have 2 options to participate. The first one is if you raise your hand. So you just have to click the raise hand icon at the right side of your screen. So you click participants, then raise hand, and then I will see who's raising his or her hand, and then I will call you, and you can turn on your audio. And then the second way to participate is to put your response in the chat box. Put your response in the chat box. So we only have 30 minutes, so we don't have a lot. We might not be able to accommodate everyone. So please feel free to use the chat box to respond. So to start, our first question is, aside from what has been presented, what other initiatives, innovative solutions to the barriers and challenges would you recommend to the UN Food System Summit? Again, the first question is, what other initiatives and innovative solutions to the barriers and challenges would you recommend to the UNFSS Summit? To the UNFSS. So anyone who wants to take the floor and share their response to the question, what initiatives and innovative solutions to the barriers and challenges would you recommend to the UNFSS, aside from those that have been presented earlier in the plenary? So maybe if you need to translate to our colleagues, please feel free to take the floor. Okay, could you type the question? Okay, I will type the question now. So I've already copied the question in the chat box. The question is, aside from what has been presented, what are the other initiatives and innovative solutions to the barriers and challenges would you recommend to the UNFSS? So we have one from Indonesia, Pius Mulyono of IOA. Would you mind sharing with us or elaborating your response to us? Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Barry, can you translate?
So you need translation?
Miss Ferry?
Sudah saya translate di chat, Pak. Silakan dilihat.
Oke. Yang saya mau sampaikan?
Oh, tapi saya translate-nya di tempat Mbak Lina, maaf. Jadi tadi di samping apa yang sudah dipresentasikan. So, sorry, I take the floor.
Yes.
Oke, di samping yang sudah disampaikan tadi, dipresentasikan di diskusi tadi, adakah prakarsa dan solusi inovatif yang lain yang akan Bapak atau Ibu sampaikan ke UNFSS?
Ya, maksudnya saya mau nyampaikan, tolong ditranslate ya, Mbak.
Oh, baik, baik.
Ya, thank you, Miss Maylin. Sebenarnya kalau bicara tentang food system, mestinya memang harus berbasis ke local food system. Karena beberapa komunitas itu punya sistem pangan yang berbeda-beda. Itu tidak bisa disamaratakan atau diseragamkan.
Okay, so when we are talking about food system, of course we have to look into the local food system, because we cannot, take everything as a common. So they have a different system from one to another.
Yang kedua, karena berbasis local food system, tentunya tidak ada penyeragaman jenis pangan, jenis makanan, karena pangan lokal menjadi tumpuan untuk pangan komunitas.
Okay, because it is based on the local food system, of course, there is no uniformity on the types of food because the local food will be the basis for the community food system.
Okay, enough.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Pius emphasized the need to consider the local context or the local food system in the UNFSS. So, any other inputs from the group, from your organizations or from your communities? Do you have any initiatives and innovative solutions that you have been implementing? So we have some response from Ika of Indonesia. So Ika, would you mind sharing it to the group by taking the floor? Kindly unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mylene.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is Ika. So it is very important for us to have food system based on the local wisdom, such as what Mr. Pius Mulyono said earlier. So there are some practices have been applied by community, such as practicing the ecological farming or agroecology or natural farming or organic farming. So we use very efficient resources and we also have our local seeds. So those are local resources should be encouraged and should be preserved and have the useful for the future. The other thing is we should recognize the local wisdom raised by the community, such as the local community have knowledge in terms of whether or when to plant the seeds or the plants and how to manage the pest with the ecologically friendly pest management. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ika. Yes, thank you for highlighting the need to acknowledge the local wisdom, the local knowledge that has been passed on from generations within the community. So since you are familiar with the situation, with the context of the local community, you are best positioned, you are well positioned to manage the resources and apply the right practices and techniques in the area. So any other inputs from the group? We have some participants from Vietnam and Laos here. So anyone who wants to take the floor?
Mylene Sota raised his hand.
Thank you. Thank you for it. Yes, Sota, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mylene. Thank you, everyone, also for your participation. And for me, I think that to enable farmer to get access to knowledge and also education for younger people at school, they should get aware of agroecology and sustainable agriculture, and also to enable them to access to knowledge on resilient agriculture to the climate change, and access to finance, market opportunity, and the policy to support agricultural activity and the farming community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sota. I think you've already sort of answered guide question number 3, but we will look into that later. So now, so we have a comment from the chat box that says, agree with both both access to fund and market are also important to farmers. Thank you for that, LF and Lau. So if we don't have any other response for question 1, we'll now move on to question number 2. So I will paste it in the chat box. So question number 2, are there specific strategies or innovations that have successfully addressed climate change-related challenges of women and young farmers? Again, question number 2, are there specific strategies or innovations that have successfully addressed climate change-related challenges of women and young farmers? So, do you need the floor to translate for our Indonesian and for our Vietnamese colleagues? Do you need the floor to translate with the rest of the group?
Chiến ơi,
Sorry, I didn't catch who was talking. So does our colleague from Indonesia want to translate the question for the rest of the group?
Okay, excuse me. Ya. Oke, untuk terjemahannya sudah saya rekam di WhatsApp group, tapi akan saya terjemahkan lagi di sini. Adakah strategi-strategi dan inovasi spesifik yang telah secara sukses membahas hambatan-hambatan atau tantangan-tantangan yang terkait dengan perubahan cuaca bagi wanita dan juga petani muda? Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. And then for our Vietnamese colleagues, do you also need to take the floor for the translation, to translate? None? Okay, so I'm giving the floor for those who would like to answer guide question number 2. So are there any specific strategies or approaches that you know of that can help women and young farmers better adapt to climate change related challenges? Perhaps your organization has initiatives that you have been doing to help young farmers and women farmers. Please feel free to share them in this breakout group.
Hello, Mylene. I don't know if I'm supposed to, if I'm allowed to speak. No, I am the note taker. But anyway, I would like to share to everyone what has been done in Masipag in the Philippines. This is not very specific to women and youth and young farmers, but to the whole organization, which composed of men, women, and young people. So what they did was they have been processing the products that they have from the raw materials from their farms. So I agree with Aki and all other participants here that it basically agroecology is a strategy, but the harvest from agroecology are also being processed into and then the farmers sell it to other groups, but they get some income, some kind of percentage from sorry, my phone is ringing. I'm so distracted. But anyway, they get a portion of their income from selling the organic and products made from organic ingredients, and they have it as emergency fund, which they use mainly specifically for climate change emergencies. Like they give it to the other organizations if they have been affected by climate change or floods or typhoons. So, and aside from the harvest, since we have some kind of community seed banks, we also give seeds to other organizations who have been affected, by especially by flooding. We all know that we here in Southeast Asia are always being affected by strong typhoons. So we make sure that communities have their own seed banks, and from these seed banks they will get the seeds from the next cropping season, or they share it to other farmers organization if they have been affected by typhoons and other like drought or other climate emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weng, for sharing. That's a really interesting initiative. May I ask, for the emergency fund set aside, is there like a specific percentage of the income, or it's up to them how much?
Yes, it's up to them. The organization decides how much they're going to set aside for the emergency fund, as long as they have something for emergencies. Yes.
That's good to hear. So we have another chat message from the chat from PGS Vietnam. No, enhancing family farming and promoting agroecology, support or subsidize small farmers who do organic farming and agroecology. Okay, so link small farmer into network organization to train them. So thank you for that. But Nong, do you want to take the floor to expound on that insights?
Okay, but I would like to speak in Vietnamese because I see our colleagues here, and our interpreter will translate for them.
Okay.
But I don't know where he is now. I cannot hear him.
Maybe they're in another breakout group. I don't know.
Chiến ơi, because oh my God. So may I explain in Vietnamese?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Cả nhà mình ơi, có nghe tôi nói không? Alo. Mình đóng góp cho cái chiến lược cụ thể trong để trình lên cái hội nghị thượng đỉnh ấy, thì cũng muốn rằng là họ có những cái chiến lược cụ thể để giải quyết những cái vấn đề về biến đổi khí hậu vừa rồi mà mọi người chia sẻ. Thì hiện nay thì những cái phát triển nông nghiệp theo hướng hiện đại ấy, thì người ta đã lấy rất là nhiều đất rồi đầu tư rất là nhiều và phá hủy cũng rất là nhiều. Ơi,
sao này lúc nghe lúc không?
Chị cứ gọi em để em dịch cho, tại vì là chị không muốn nói bằng tiếng Anh, chị nói tiếng Việt để em dịch.
Nhưng mà có lúc nghe lúc không.
Thế á? Nghe được chưa?
Rồi chị nói đi.
Thì chị cũng câu hỏi là muốn hỏi những cái cụ thể, những cái chiến lược để giải quyết cái vấn đề về trình lên trên FS.
Sao nhỉ? Lại không nghe rồi.
Rõ mà. Okay, so what's happening now?
Some short sentence in the chat book. Okay, but now I speak in Vietnamese.
Okay, so but make it short because we're running a bit late. Okay.
Yeah. Thì cái mà mình muốn trao đổi với cả trình lên họ theo bằng cái cùng của mình ấy, thì là muốn rằng là bây giờ phải thúc đẩy cái family farming, tức là cái nông nghiệp mà ở trong các hộ gia đình nông dân nhỏ. Cái là họ phải no đã, rồi họ sẽ đưa những cái sản phẩm họ ra ngoài, và đặc biệt là cần cái sự hỗ trợ và thậm chí là của chính phủ cho những cái hộ nông dân nhỏ này, và liên kết họ lại thành cái mạng lưới, những cái tổ chức để nâng cao kiến thức, nhận thức cho họ để sản xuất tốt hơn. Đấy là những 3 cái ý chính mà mình muốn trình lên trên FSS hội nghị thượng đỉnh. Ok, Chiến có nghe thấy gì không?
Vừa rồi lại không nghe gì à?
Yeah.
Chỉ nghe được lính small farmers.
because I work as I'm working in the small farmer, so I see they are the very big force because the 60% of Vietnam of the farmer in Vietnam are the small farmer, and we need the submit to the FSS. That's we just we should focus on enhancing the family farming. A small farmer, link them together. They can produce for their own consumption and bring the food for the in the domestic first, and then can link them together and support and subsidize for them to export the product. That's I see it's very important because for the big like the industrial productions now destroy a lot of things, and we make the climate change from the industrial and the agriculture. So that's from my side. I submit to the FSS. Yes.
Thank you very much, Nong. I think it's really important that we highlight the need to enhance family farming, because family farming is something that is being done by all members of the family, and it ensures that there's a food security at the domestic level, at the household level. And then when we link them together, we could have a more sustainable local food system. So now we move on to question number 3. So this is the last question. So I already pasted or copied it in the chat box. Please, the question is, please enumerate ways to scale out or scale up implementation of the solutions and initiatives that have been discussed. Again, please enumerate ways how can we scale out or scale up the implementation of the solutions and initiatives. What are the things that are needed? Is it policy? Is it financial resources, and so on and so forth? So what do you guys think? Anyone who would like to share, please feel free to unmute yourself. I think I read a message in the chat box. It says from LFN Lao. I think this is for question number 2. Extension work on adaptation is needed, and give chance to women and young people to share their knowledge and gain new challenge like farmer to farmer or farmer field school. Thank you very much for that, Lao. We'll take note of that strategy. Anyone who would like to share? I think, yeah, we have translations going on in the chat box. Thank you very much, Ferry. And Dong, I think they're translating the question. So what are the ways in which we can scale out or scale up implementation of the solutions? So we have a response from Thoa Abavina JSC. So paying attention to improving the capacity of households to control available resources so that they can increase their production and do not create any further damage to the environment. Okay, so increasing productivity while protecting the environment. So that's one. So it's more on capacity building. Ecological. And then another response is public policy related to or innovative should be in place at multi-level. So from national, provincial, district, and village levels. So multi-level. So anyone else who would like to suggest any specific policies or programs that are needed to scale up or scale out innovative solutions?
Eileen.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go.
Since no one is speaking now. So, this is like to provide, enabling environment to the farmers. So we are talking about funds, we are talking about policies, and what do we have? And market opportunities, as mentioned by Sota. But it's also important to give a wider space, a bigger space for farmers, for them to be able to do all of this, because most of the time national governments only provide very little space for farmers to do this. Like for example, in the Philippines, we have an organic agriculture law, but then the budget for the implementation of this law is very minimal. I think it's only 5% of the national budget, no, and this is only compared to the 95% budget that has been provided for the conventional farming system. So that's very important for the national governments to not to give some, like, for very minimal support. So I think that's one of the important recommendation that we can highlight here. And of course, for international organizations like FAO to really highlight agroecology solutions for regenerative agriculture to be the highlight of the solutions, and not only a part of the solution, but the highlight of the solutions. Because we are, like for climate change, we are mentioning, everyone here mentions about natural, agroecology, sustainable agriculture, but that's only a part of the solution that's being proposed by FAO. So we have to, put that at the center of the solution. Thank you.
Okay. Lots of responses in the chat box. So from Lao, it says access to finance for smallholder farmers. Insurance policy is very interesting. We don't have that yet in Lao. So perhaps this is something that could be adopted. From Sok Banzuela, elect good people in government who can craft better laws and will implement family farmer and environmentally friendly programs. I think this applies to almost all of the issues right now. Being able to select or elect leaders that really address the issues of his or her constituents. And then I am very worried about the electricity shortage of poaching in the gardens. It affects the ecology of the growing area for an entire region and beyond. So thank you for that, Thoa, for raising that. I'm not sure. I'm just copying all of the responses from the group. Miss Weng, nanonote yun naman po yung nasa chat box, no? Baka kasi mo-miss out ko.
Minamadali ko. Sige.
Yeah. Okay. So, any other responses from the group? I think we only have a couple of minutes before plenary. Fran, do you want to say something? Hello? Sorry, I'm just thinking. Okay. So any more responses from the group? Before we close the floor? I think there are new responses. Let me read them. Build strong, professionally managed agri-co-ops in all municipalities and cities to reach out to all family farmers to provide full value chain services to all members. Okay, so thank you for raising that, Sir Sok. There's going to be a session on increasing market access on day 4. So we should be able to have more interesting sharing of experiences on that independent dialogue. I hope that everyone could still attend that session so that you get to know more the experiences of our speakers and presenters. So, and then third is install a functional multi-stakeholder partnership mechanism at national to local levels. Thank you for raising that po. Any other responses before we close? If not, let me just quickly summarize the main ideas or the key takeaways that we had in the breakout session. For question 1, on the innovative solutions and challenges that can be used, there is a lot of discussion about the recognition of local knowledge or local wisdom in addressing the challenges and barriers faced by young farmers, faced by family farmers, and aside from the local knowledge, the agroecological approach is seen as one of the main strategies we really use to address the climate change interlinkage of agriculture. There are also a lot of solutions that have been shared. So there's one about setting aside an emergency fund for climate change emergencies, community seed banks, training of family farmers on agroecological approaches and extension work. So those are some of the concrete programs that can be done, both not only for family farmers in general, but also for young women, young farmers and women farmers. In terms of the strategies that we have, we identified the need for capacity building, the need for multi-level public policy and an enabling environment where there is wider space and wider support for farmers in terms of budget, financial resources, and other resources. There's also suggestion of the need for documenting good practices or good case studies and building public awareness, and the need for international organizations to highlight agroecology as a means for making agriculture, making family farming climate resilient. Yes, and thank you to LF and Lao for highlighting that there are already policies that exist. We just need policy enforcement. Yes, that is really important. And really putting resources in the policy implementation, because there are a lot of policies in place but no budget for the department or the ministry to implement them. So I think that ends the breakout session. I think we should be automatically transferred to the plenary, right, Ms. Weng? Or
yes, I don't know what's happening. Maybe the others are still. Yes, maybe the others are still having their workshop.
Okay. So if that's the case, maybe we should do some photo op, no? For our group. So if everyone can just turn on their videos quickly so that we can take a photo. All right, I think the others are not are shy. Okay, let me just okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay.
Thanks, Melin.
Thank you. I think we can leave the room and then we'll be automatically transferred. More. Okay. Request from the chat box, one more photo.
One more.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. All right. So tama po ba, Miss Weng? If we leave the room, we will be taken to the plenary.
Oo.
So we can now please click the leave room button at the bottom right of your screen, and that will take you to the plenary. So see you there, everyone.
See you at the plenary. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow.
No, just leave the
Plenary,
breakout
plenary.
room only.
Yes.
Plenary room.
Breakout room.
My God. It's 15, 30 already. You know,
Leave breakout.
I thought it's finished now.
Hi, Irish D. Can you close the room South Asia? Because some of them cannot click on the leave breakout room. We have to close so that they will be routed back automatically.
Yeah, I think that's an area that it's not to be standard.
Irish D.
Yes, I have to close all rooms.
Yes, yes. There are some of the
Pacific group is not yet done.
done. Okay, can you close on the South Asia because some of them are still there. I left the room to let you know that they are still there.
I cannot see the option to close a specific breakout group. I have to close. The only option I have is close all rooms. Yeah, Pacific is
okay, okay.
Not us working in isolation. Many times we are tended, we are looked upon as the competitor by many of our counterparts. Yeah? But really, at
Sorry, Irish, is everyone back in the main meeting room?
Yes, Angela.
Thank you very much, Irish. Thank you, everyone, for the discussions that were held in the breakout rooms. We will now move to each of the regions, if they can possibly share what they discussed in their respective breakout rooms, please. If we can first hear from Central Asia.
Angela, can you let us know who is the moderator for Central Asia? Because our group, we have Central Asia, but we also have South Asia and we also have Southeast Asia.
I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry.
Yes, Miss Esther, that's the group. Angela is
Okay, so the first group is, sorry, I beg your pardon, Southeast Asia in Norfolk was in this breakout room.
Yes.
Then we had South Asia with AFA, and then Eastern Central Asia was also AFA, followed by the Pacific. If we could possibly have sorry, I beg your pardon. If you could have someone from Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start with South Asia.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will share my screen. So there are 37 of us. Sorry, just a few seconds. Okay, so around 37, 38 from our group. So we have South Asia, but we have one participant from the Mekong region as well. So again, apologies for the others that the interpretation was not working for breakout rooms. We will rectify these by tomorrow. But we had a very interesting discussion. We had a number of people who shared what they are doing in terms of adapting to climate change and also contributing to mitigating climate change. So one has shared about their initiative to address the problem of drought or too little water or innovation that conserves water. So we had Institute IMSE who shared about what they are doing on rainwater harvesting, and also they are doing surface water harvesting. And this innovation is being done at the village level, and that they were able to address the problem of drinking water shortage or conserving drinking water. And also what they are doing is contributing to recharging groundwater. And that they are targeting the youth with this innovation that they are doing to address water scarcity or drought or water shortage. And that they are doing this, they are scaling this up through mainstreaming and also doing policy advocacy with the government, so that these innovation on water conservation or recharging groundwater will be scaled out to more villages. So that is what IMSE is doing in 3 eastern states in India. And another one SPWD also shared what they are doing in the 9 states in India. They are doing an innovative solution wherein they marry the technology using data. So rainfall data, they are using that to design local solutions. So again, it's also about conserving water or addressing shortage of water. So here, it's very interesting that most of the innovation are addressing water scarcity. So they use rainfall data, local rainfall data, and as a result of that, in many or in some of the areas, they were able to design water saving mechanisms, and also they were able to increase or slow down the movement of water, or also increase surface water. So here you will see that what they are doing is not just impacting the water level, groundwater level, but also it has a lot of like benefits, multiple benefits or multiple outcomes. And then in Sri Lanka, one of the interesting initiative is the analog technology, wherein it's a more holistic in nature. So what they are doing is restoring land, rehydrating water sources, and also addressing groundwater pollution. And they are also using local tree species to rehabilitate the watershed. So not only that, it is water smart or climate smart, they are also impacting biodiversity. And they are doing scaling out through mainstreaming into the I think right to food framework. So they are they have embedded this into a bigger framework. So yeah, another way to scale out innovation is, as you can see on the screen, is to enact new policies, to have dialogue with policymakers, to do training, and also to do education as well. So there is one, I think I have just 1 minute. So on flooding, so the Mekong, who is our representative from the Mekong area, he shared that through the support from resource institutions, they were able to conserve or continue to use traditional floating rice to adapt to flooding. And also they were able to restore or control flooding with the innovation that they are doing. And interestingly, they have also introduced rice and shrimp planting method. I have heard this like years back, but it is now being introduced. So they are introducing organic rice production with shrimp. So it's rice shrimp farming system. So these are the ways that they are adapting to the problem of too much water or flooding in their area. And they have done this because of partnership. So they have partnered with the market. So for the youth, I think 2 examples were shared: green technologies and entrepreneurship model to adapt to climate change were shared. So ways to scale out networking among farmers organization at the national and regional levels, and then also farmer to farmer dissemination of technology. So that's from my group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irish. If we can move to the next group, please, which is listed as East and Central Asia. Afa again moderated for this group. Thank you. Sorry, we have Eastern Central Asia, Rowan Corneras from the Philippines. And
that's Angela, that is the group that I went to. We really do not know what group we were, but we are in that group. So I think we have assigned Ha from Vietnam to deliver the report.
Thank you very much, Esther.
Our moderator was from Inofo, Maya.
Yes. Okay, so I will try to share what we discussed in our group. So we are agree with the organic agriculture is the solution that we can bring the voice to the UNFSS. Because why organic agriculture? Because organic agriculture also focus on family farming. By doing a corporation in the food system, that will be a big issue if farmers cannot be manufacture anymore like that. And then also by doing organic agriculture, that's also the way how to protect the soil as the way to prevent the climate change by protecting the soil not burning when we doing the cultivation, and also not using a chemical for the fertilizer and pesticides, and also consider about the seeds itself. We must proud about our own local seeds, and then we also consider about the story, the knowledge of our ancestor in that seed. And then by for young farmers, they use mostly for them, they are interesting in doing integrated farming, like our friends in Philippines doing integrated farming as a one of the way to make it the input itself. It's come from the farm. And then doing a traditional agriculture means we don't let our indigenous people their knowledge about agriculture left behind, but how to work with them, how to collaborate with them, bring their knowledge, not be shy because we will doing like it's traditional, it's just left behind. No, but their knowledge is actually something that really really good in a sustainable in the food system. And also our friends from Tajikistan share about doing grafting to plant indigenous tree. That's also the strategic. That's also a technique that they use to make it to protect their biodiversity. That's from our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. We have the third Asian group, please, to present before we finish with the Pacific.
Is it the Southeast Asian group?
Yes, please.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Mylene, the moderator for the Southeast Asian group. So there were 24 total in the breakout session. So I'm just presenting the main takeaways that we had. First is the need to advocate for family farming as really the means for addressing the barriers and challenges of achieving sustainable food systems in light of climate change issues. There's also a discussion about the need to recognize local knowledge or wisdom on agroecological approach to family farming to enable family farmers to increase productivity whilst protecting the integrity of the environment. So participants emphasized here that it is really important to consider the local context or the local food system and the local knowledge of people, because they know the ecological farming practices that are applicable or are viable in their areas. The practices on irrigation, cultivation of local seeds, pest management, etc. So what are the example of solutions that we have identified? So one member of the group shared about this system that they established where a portion of income from the agroecology harvest is used as emergency fund for climate emergencies. So they assist their family farmer members to set aside a portion of their income so that when there is a disaster that happens, they are able to adapt. And then also the establishment of community seed banks, especially in communities that are frequently affected by flooding, typhoons, etc. And then third is extension work on climate change adaptation, including establishing farmer-to-farmer or farmer field schools, which could also focus on engaging women and young farmers. And then, of course, establishment of market for organic local produce, establishment of an insurance system. So this one was for Lao. And then last is establishment of linkages of family farmers with local cooperatives or organizations. So there. And then for the scaling out or scaling up strategies, we identified the need for public policies that work at different levels. So not only at the national, but up to the village level and vice versa. And then wider space and enabling environment. So that means that greater allocation of financial resources, greater platform for participation in decision making for family farmers, greater access to market. So it's really when we recognize the importance of family farmers, that means that we are willing to allocate the resources needed to support them or to assist them. Also, the promotion of the right to access or control resources for family farmers. And then in terms of the more concrete programs, there's a suggestion to document the good practices of family farmers to address climate change issues and to raise awareness of the public on those so that we'll gather more support. And then capacity building, of course, and training on agroecological approaches. So that's it for our group. Thank you very much.
Mylene, thank you very much for sharing the discussions from your breakout session. We now move to the Pacific, and we have Ateva, I believe, who will be sharing the discussions from their breakout room, Naka. So if you can return to the main Google Doc, please, Irish. Thank you.
Sorry, Bulavanaka, everybody. Can everybody hear me fine?
Yes.
All good, Ateva. Thank you.
Thank you. Our questions were, aside from what has been presented, what other initiatives, innovative solutions to barriers and challenges would you recommend to the UNFS? We spoke tremendously on to push for the traditional crops for here in the Pacific, example, our breadfruit projects, which are currently in the consumption level. We also talked about how the commodity is not reaching retail shops and how the product is piecemeal. We also recommended that the project work with retail, larger shops and companies, so this is available to the larger public. We also talked about how adaptation of other local crops and to also provide market for these local crops. Example, in Kiribati, where the IFAD project was firstly promoted to the locals to create the demand, and then to work on the production of vegetables, then the nutritional values as the people were educated again on it. And this can be done in other Pacific islands and can be replicated also. We've also seen that other traditional crops specific to the Pacific, which is yams, sweet potatoes, and coconut, can be pushed for more production. But these are our barriers and challenges. Sorry, can we just move up the... Our second question was, are there specific strategies or innovations that have successfully addressed climate change related challenges of women and young farmers? Yes, we have. The presentation and work done by PFON is addressing it, but this needs to be worked together with the government so it can be brought out to the public and the general farming community. We've seen that one of our major barriers for successfully addressing this challenges of women and young farmers is that the communication between the organizations and the farmers to the grassroots level. We've seen that the information is available, but it is not being taken down to the grassroots level. And we've seen that there have been many researches done, but we see that also there's duplication and which leads to wastage of resources. So next one is enumerating ways of scaling out and scaling up. Production was what the group discussed at length. This is the issue with agriculture sector in the Pacific, as we have many smallholder farmers. But the idea is to combine these smallholder farmers into groups. This will also, into groups, association, and farmer organization, and that can help to provide produce for the market. Research is also a hindrance, the need to have information readily available to farmers, the production system, innovative solutions, and then have already been tested and tried out and shared. These should be shared lessons and learning so that the farmers do not need to start from scratch again. Partnership between universities, we see that we need to involve students who are studying agriculture at universities with farmers at grassroots level. We also need with the ministry as well. The Research Institute with Government on Agriculture Production, and also presentation by PFON to have farmer organization as part link to get information down to the farmers. And also the acknowledgement that all parties need to work closer and share information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ateva, for sharing the views from the Pacific. We would like to thank all participants for their feedback, for the fruitful discussions in the breakout rooms. The information that you have shared will be collated and consolidated on Friday, and this will then be submitted from the region towards the Food Systems Summit. We thank those of you who have remained. We know we are over time, but it has been rather fruitful. I would now like to travel to Suva, Fiji, and we have Mr. Sekusa Tumbuna, the Sub-Regional Coordinator for IFAD in the Asia Pacific, to close today's session. Mr. Tumbuna brings with him a wealth of experience, having worked for the Fiji government for 24 years, 2 of which were with the Ministry of Strategic Planning and National Development, and 22 were with the Ministry of Agriculture. Welcome, Sekusa. Vinaka.
Thank you very much, colleagues. It's a privilege to be here and to make some closing remarks on the subject that we have just discussed this afternoon. I think there's quite a lot of issues and a lot of knowledge that we have gained from this afternoon's session. And basically, we would like to thank everyone for your participation and for your contribution. I just want to highlight some of the issues that were raised during this afternoon's session. I think one of the issues that has been raised is the involvement of farmer organizations in devising policy and strategies for climate change and adaptation. I think it's quite important that we have to involve farmer and farmer organizations with the government and other stakeholders in this regard. Also, it was also highlighted the need for farmers to be involved in policy that has been raised also. And I think one of the third issue that was raised was the importance of soils. I think in the Pacific is one of the an area that has not been provided more support by government and other agencies. But I think there's an important issue of ensuring that we promote soil management and of course conservation. And of course more diverse ecosystem management has been done in some other countries. Of course, we also listen to the experience from India in terms of increasing, ensuring that smallholder farms or family farms have insurance. And I think this is one of the areas that in the Pacific we have not really attempted to perhaps maybe not to promote. And I think also one of the things that came about is on ensuring that we promote the environment, and this came about during the presentation by the groups from Asia. They need to ensure that we protect our environment and ensuring that we have another management systems such as water harvesting and ensuring that water is being also protected and ensuring that we have access to these resources. I think there's also emphasis on family farming and the need to ensure that farmers are always consulted in terms of government policy for adaptation and climate change. There is no common theme which I've seen from the Pacific and also to Asia, the involvement of farmers and farm organizations in adaptation and also ensuring that the lessons that are learned could be upscaled and ensuring other farmers could also learn from what has been practiced in some of the areas that we are working on. Once again, I would like to thank the organizers for this for the session. It has been very fruitful. We have learned quite a lot of things from it, and we hopefully we can share this through other channel that we have. And I would like to thank PIFON for inviting us to contribute to this afternoon session. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you to all our speakers and participants. If we can possibly switch on our videos, we'd like to take a photo, a group photo for everyone before we switch off for the day. So if you can all switch on your videos, please, so that we can have a photo taken of this first day of dialogue for the Asia-Pacific region, Vinaka. Yeah.
Sorry, Angela, my camera is not working.
Oh, okay, Flo. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, that's fine then. If you can switch on your videos, we'd welcome that too. Thank you. Irish, you give us a heads up when you're ready.
Yeah, ready for the pages.
Thank
so
you.
hold your smile for 10 seconds.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3. Next. 1, 2. Next one. 1, 2, 3. Next one. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Done.
Thank you so much, Irish. Thank you again, everyone. There's in the chat box information on the remainder of the themes for the rest of the week. We thank you again for joining us. Do register at the given link. If you, and we wish you, your teams, and your families health and safety. Thank you.
Very much.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there, but thank you, Ava, for all your support. We thank all our partners in INOFO and the WFO, IFAD, of course, and we look forward to tomorrow's discussions and the rest of the week. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.